Welcome, everyone. I'm happy to call to order this meeting of the Town of Poughkeepsie Town Board for March 4th, 2026. We'll begin with a salute to the flag. I just wanted to recognize that the nation is at war, and if we might take just a few seconds after we do the pledge to reflect, to think about our troops, their families, to all who may be in harm's way, to those who may have lost their lives, and to wish for a just peace. So I'll take just a little while after the pledge for us to reflect. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. We begin with the roll call.
Okay, good evening, Bill Reuter, First Ward.
Hello, Barbara Laird, representing Second Ward.
Hi, Shanta Tangaya, Ward 3.
Emily Watson, Ward 4.
Good evening, Ryan Sharp, Fifth Ward.
Ann Shershin, Sixth Ward.
Felicia Salvatore, Town Clerk.
Emily Svensson, Attorney to the Town.
Rebecca Edwards, Town Supervisor. So I wanted to make just two quick announcements. First, that we will not have a meeting next Wednesday, March 11th. The workshop items that we were going to look at next Wednesday are going to be postponed. So our next meeting here will be March 18th, 2 weeks from now, and will be a regular voting meeting. Second, I just wanted to say a heartfelt congratulations to our new police officers who last Thursday, February 26th, graduated from Police Academy. Michael Manzello, Jenna Galasso, James Reza, Evan Rosenfield, and Keith Donachie, who can now all put police officer in front of their names. They are graduated. And Officer Rosenfeld won the award for top shot for his sharpshooting and firearms expertise. And also he won the Esprit de Corps award for contributing to the spirit and morale of the group in Police Academy. So we obviously have a really strong group here of future leaders in the department. So congratulations to them. So I would move that we suspend. We're going to do the public hearing first, and then we'll do the 3 minutes on comments on the other items. I move to suspend the rules. No, that's not correct, because we're doing public hearing first. Maybe.
I move to suspend the rules to have public hearing regarding MS4 annual report.
Right, okay, so we're moving to open the public hearing, right? So move, that's why I second that motion. And so the floor is open for anyone who may want to, oh, we've got to vote, yes.
Aye.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, looking a little rough start tonight. Okay, the public hearing is now open for any member of the public who would like to comment on the MS4 annual report, which was posted late last week. And I'll begin with anyone in the room who might want to comment on that report. MS4 has become more complex. I want to thank Town Engineer Bobby Bozak, who put together the report and has done a lot of research and preparation to make sure we meet the state requirements. Anyone in the room who wanted to speak on the MS4 report? Okay, then on Zoom, Doreen, welcome.
Thank you. I would just like to say that I will likely be submitting written comments before the end of the comment period on March 13th. Although with the new report format, it was unclear to me if my comments had really been included from last year, but I will check with the stormwater coordinator about that. And so that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll look forward to your comments. Is there anyone else here who wanted to comment on the MS4 report? Okay, seeing none, then I would move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries 7-0. And so we move to the resolution.
Okay, be resolved, Town Board of Town of Poughkeepsie does hereby accept the draft stormwater annual report and draft stormwater management plan prepared by Town of Poughkeepsie Stormwater Program Coordinator. That said report has been filed in the town clerk's office for review and comment by any interested party and has been posted in the town's website, and that the legal notice of public hearing was posted on February 20th, 2026, and published in the Poughkeepsie Journal on February 26th, 2026. Be it further resolved that on March 4th, 2026, this evening, public hearing was held at a regularly scheduled meeting of the town board, and that public review and comment period ends at 4 p.m. on March 13th, 2026, when all written and oral comments are to be submitted. And be further resolved, the town board does direct the stormwater program coordinator to review the comments and prepare for filing the final report, which is due April 1st, 2026, and to file the final report after the Director of Municipal Development has reviewed and approved any changes. So moved.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Again, I want to thank Engineer Bobby Bozak for the report. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, then the resolution passes 7-0, and we accept the draft report. Okay, then I move to suspend the rules for anyone who may want to speak to us for 3 minutes, up to 3 minutes, on any item that is on tonight's agenda. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion carries 7-0, so the floor is open for anyone in the room first, and then on Zoom for anyone who might want to speak on other agenda items tonight. Yes, Steve, welcome.
Steve Osterly's Third Ward. A couple things. Starting with Resolution 3, I'm concerned the town budget was out of balance by $817,000 at the end of fiscal year 2025. I understand that moving money between accounts during the year is common. However, I don't understand why the adjustments appear to have been held till the year end. In my view, a better practice would be make adjustments as needed throughout the year, or at least monthly, to improve transparency and oversight. Regarding Resolution 9, it's a question which I know you may not be able to answer now during this period, but since this is a state road, I'd like information or clarification on what traffic calming measures the town can actually authorize to implement. Since it's a state road, our authority, at least the way I understand, is limited, so I'd like to know exactly what that bond, or the grant rather, would be for. And then on Resolution 10, I'd asked at the last meeting, and will ask again, what is the purpose of this resolution? I am concerned that this may be more about political signaling than policy. There's been a great deal of misinformation about DHS and immigration enforcement. That information has contributed to fear and mistrust. Whether or not an officer displays the name on a uniform is not the root cause of this mistrust. Except in undercover situations, federal officers generally wear vests or clothing that clearly identify them as law enforcement and identify their agency. The proposed law allows only limited exceptions for medical, biological, extreme cold conditions, and then only during declared weather emergencies or for physical protection. Because of the supremacy clause, this law would not be enforceable against federal agents. However, it would apply to local, and local agencies and that, including the county drug task force officers, which include town officers. This would prevent them from wearing masks during raids or from withholding their names when doing so, which is necessary to protect their identity and that of their families. It was also stated at the last meeting that ICE agents are not well trained. While the training differs from that of local police, mainly because of the focus specifically on immigration enforcement, the agents involved do receive training, and the ones involved in the recent shootings reportedly had over 10 years of experience. From DHS site, they received the total number of hours of training that they had in the previously, but they've just been compressed format, more like a boot camp instead of spread out over several months. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That was 3 minutes and 1 second, so thank you. All right, is there anyone else in the room who would like to speak? And just to follow up, I think when we get to a couple of those resolutions, we can address some of the questions you asked. Anyone else in the room who wanted to speak? Then I'll move to Zoom. Doreen, welcome.
My comment is on agenda item number 6, the tree felling security agreement with Manor Hill Mobile Home Park. I believe that's in the I know it's in the 4th Ward. And my concern is that the security agreement doesn't include an amount for replacement trees. And number 7, which is also a tree felling security agreement for Prentice Fields, does contain an amount for replacement trees. And just to give a little background, about 21 years ago, when I was on the CAC, is when the law was enacted in order to prevent site clearing before the final site plan was signed. And that was so that to address a concern that if a project fell through, the trees would be gone and then there would be no replacement. So I don't understand why the one for Manor Hill doesn't have a replacement tree cost. And, to me, that's very important. It has $160,000 to ensure the site is stabilized, but the Prentice Field one particularly says what kind of trees and how many. So that's a concern of mine. And even the planning department in their recommendation letter acknowledged that in the past there had been some projects that had waivers of the code, and that resulted in some sites being cleared and remained with downed trees for several years. So I'd like to see some assurance that trees would be replanted on that site if something happened and the project fell through. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that the Ward 4 board member, Emily, raised that question as well, so we'll discuss it when we get there, so. All right, anyone else who wanted to speak during the public comment period? All right, seeing none, I move that we return to regular session. Oh, whoops, I'm sorry. Mary, welcome.
Thank you very much. I wanted to speak to Resolution 10, following up on our previous meeting. Again, this is a resolution that's supporting the state legislature. And again, it's upholding and requiring that all federal agents meet professional standards, both in our state, our county, and town. So the instances of lived experience of abuse of people with power is a cautionary tale, and I very much want to support the resolution that federal agents would act according to our good standards here in New York and in the town of Poughkeepsie and in Dutchess County. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wanted to speak tonight in the room or online? Okay, seeing none, then I move that we return to regular session.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries 7-0. Okay, we have a little bit of a short agenda tonight, and so as we kind of work on the rhythm of board meetings, there are a couple of questions that we wanted to talk about that I think make sense to talk about now before we launch into the regular business. And the first is about the reading of bills, right? And we asked council to give us some advice. There are this isn't a sort of discretionary zone. There are places that do a consent agenda so that if no board member objects, this was the case in the county legislature when I was there, everything was just read by the clerk. The whole agenda is read by the clerk, everything that everybody agrees on, and then you just vote once and just pass it all, which just puts a huge amount of business goes through without really, a lot of stuff can get passed very fast. The other approach is to read every single bill completely from beginning to end, every word, that's not necessary. So we're trying to figure out how we can balance, making sure that the public understands the need of each bill, that we are taking care with each bill without necessarily getting bogged down reading 7-page resolutions. So we asked council for some advice on that. And before we start reading bills tonight, we could talk a little bit about what we want to do, and we do have some discretion in how we want to handle it.
Yep, good summary. You definitely have discretion. There's no specific way that it needs to be done. Of course, we want to make sure the public is informed of what the board is taking action on, and has an opportunity to see the details if they want, but you don't actually need to read all the details out loud. So the way we do it now is each resolution is written out and there's a packet that's posted online. So anyone who wants to can go online to the Agenda Center part of the website and read the full text of all the resolutions. In some towns, they put out a copy, for anyone in the public who might want to look at it in person. That's an option you could do. But essentially, the public does have access to them. In my opinion, the best practice is to, well, it's not best, but what I would suggest is to give a summary of the resolution before you vote on it. What we have right now on the agenda, we have a short title for what the resolution is about. But I noticed on resolutions 9 and 10, you'll see that we have a little bit more of a caption on the top on the resolutions themselves. For example, Resolution 9 says authorizing submission of a grant application to the New York State Department of Transportation for the 2025 Transportation Alternatives Program and approval of a local match contribution. If it would be helpful, we can work in legal to put more of a caption like that on the top of each resolution. That might be the thing that you could read instead of reading the entirety of it. We tend to do that. We tend not to do that on the shorter resolutions, but we could easily, put a little bit more of a caption on them. And that way, you could just read that and take a vote from there. But, we're open to whatever the board prefers, whatever balance you think makes sense.
It helps to have a longer title also if you're going back through past meetings and you're trying to identify, and if it just says purchase of truck, then you have to dig through and find out. But if it says water department's purchase of, used 2021, whatever, sorry, Tommy, we aren't buying a used truck. Then you can see in the title of the resolution also what the action is. I'm wondering if that might be a little more transparent. I don't know, and people who are here can think about this, whether we ought to have a copy of the whole resolutions packet so people can see them who are here in the hallway, or are we at a point where most everybody has it on their phone or brings a laptop and can see the electronic version? If there's only one copy in the hallway and there's 3 people who want to look at it, that's not going to, I don't know. And I'd prefer to avoid more paper and more copies, and I'm sure the clerk would too, but.
So when we went as the Dutchess County clerks, we went to the Dutchess County legislator, and they had a QR code that you could scan, which had everything in it for people if they wanted to. And we actually just did also, I wanted to say, when you first became the supervisor, I think you actually went through this before with the other board.
Yep.
And you determined that you were gonna summarize.
Yep.
And some did, some didn't, now you're kind of back. So, I mean, I guess it just depends, but I think you could summarize. And we also, just to say, we did a demo today on an agenda program with our website, and there is, consent agenda is something that I think makes a whole lot of sense. And hopefully we'll be able to talk about this more since we just did it today. I don't want to bring it out to you guys now, but it's actually a really good program, and I think it's something that we should really look into.
That would be basically preventing us from having to print all of this every meeting, and we would all be working off of agenda software. And the QR code is a really great idea, I think.
Yeah, and it actually was, I was surprised. I did it years ago, this same agenda demo, but I would think I was the only one that was interested in it at the time. We have more people that are interested in it now, and it was a really good one.
I think summarizing is actually quite hard.
Yeah,
You're
takes
looking
time.
at, we don't know which one we're gonna be reading a lot of the time. So we would have to take the whole agenda in advance and write summaries for ourselves or be prepared to give short summaries. And I think that's part of the challenge we're running into and you're worried that you might leave something out that might be important. So it ends up becoming closer to reading the whole bill again and having a short title, and then if anybody feels they need to add any more information in the discussion, we can, or any details, it might be worth trying. So I think that, tonight, we could try summarizing again and see how that goes. It's nice to know that we do not need to read the bill. We just really need to read the title, and if we can make that title a little more descriptive or add a few details, we are still going bill by bill, and we're still making it clear what we're voting on. Anybody else?
Well, if I don't have to read tax grid numbers, I'm quite happy.
Oh, gosh, no.
I think that's where we really get
That was
bogged
like-
down.
It
The-
doesn't help anyone, no one's listening to those numbers
Right.
and looking them up.
Right, and nobody's gonna remember them, so you have to go back again. So we're just trying to strike that balance between making sure we're making clear what it is that we're doing, but not feeling we have to get bogged down in the details.
And I think the consent, agenda items is a good idea, like this, the K-9 officer and the shorter ones, I could almost just read like I do the notifications. And then if anybody wanted to know more about it, we could pull that one off, but I think, sometimes we have a lot of these little shorter ones
Right.
that are 3 sentences, and that makes sense to put that in a consent agenda.
Right, I worry about that from the county legislature, because I sometimes, unless a legislator specifically objected and said, put this on the non-consent agenda, I want to have a discussion of it, it went through in like 15 seconds. And sometimes I would feel like, wait, we just.
So you're not a fan of the consent?
I'm not a fan of the consent agenda, although I'm willing to listen, right? But my experience of it in the legislature was I felt that we did not have enough public engagement, because a lot of stuff, unless.
Well, I meant stuff like,
Well, I think
Yeah.
you're talking about that January reorganization meeting,
Right.
where it's almost
Right.
the same stuff, like
Right.
Mike Simon's gonna get.
right, and like a
Turn in some
K-9,
trucks
I'm not,
and get
saying
new
K-9 officer, simple things
Yeah,
like
could be.
that we could.
Well, so that's worth further discussion. Is this helpful? Anybody else have more comments?
I just wonder, when we preparing this summary sheet, we can already include a short summary, that's something we can read instead of, so
Right.
that also we can print it.
Right.
And we can have it, since it's only
Right.
1 or 2
Right.
pages, so people, public can have it as well.
Fridays
think-
are already
yeah.
crazy, I think that would make me leave tomorrow.
Well,
Sorry.
I think that's what we're talking about, is actually having a title, having each title be more descriptive, so that the basics of what the bill is doing, resolution is doing, is right there, without actually adding adding further than that.
Right.
Just try to have more detailed titles, so. The second question I wanted to raise tonight, sorry, anybody else on that comment? Second question is that I'm trying to figure out when we should give committee and liaison reports. Because we've been trying to do it the second meeting of the month. Sometimes that meeting goes very long, and at 10:15 you think, oh my goodness, we're gonna do all the committee reports now. And we can be here quite a long time, but if we don't do it at a consistent time of the month, I was wondering if we wanna break them up and maybe do some of them one meeting and some of the other, or how do people feel about that? But I do want people, it's more an opportunity, we don't always have something to add, but if Hudson Seven's doing something important, or people want to make sure that, that they're sharing what's going on in Tri-Muni or whatever, we don't always have to do it, but I want to make that opportunity open for people.
We used to always do them on committee of the whole, but now we've been trying to cut back on those, but that was really what that was for, was all the reports and presentations, so I don't know.
Yeah,
I would say if we have a workshop meeting, we can do them at the workshop.
Yes.
And then if we don't, we just have to decide, because, the CAC meets on I think it's the 4th Monday.
right.
So I just have to be prepared, because I'll be caught, if you're always doing it on the 1st, I just have to go back to the month before.
It seems like if we have a workshop meeting, it should be done there for sure. And then we won't know whether we have a workshop meeting like this month so we'll keep them in the second meeting of each month, if there's not a workshop meeting.
Okay.
And again, we don't have to have every single report, but we might want a process for you to flag if you have something substantial that you want to bring, so that we have that opportunity to let people know what's going on. Okay? And helpful? All right, thank you. Then let's move on to the K-9 officer agreement.
Well, resolution 2 is, executing a K-9 officer agreement between the town and police officer Frank Backer. And that is attached. So
Okay.
moved.
Second.
We have a new K-9 officer. Congratulations to Officer Backer. Right, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Resolution carries 7-0.
Resolution 3, we're talking about the controller doing the adjustments. Rebecca, you want to elaborate that?
Shant, I
Sure.
can't hear very well, I don't know if you hear things.
Sure. So in the be it resolved clause is the place which is really important. We're ratifying the comptroller's intra-fund adjustments, transfers, and amendments to the 2025 operating budget. So moved?
So moved.
Okay, second. I realize there's a mistake on the agenda. It says the 2024 budget. That should actually say 2025.
I did fix that on the online agenda.
Oh, okay, great, thanks. And just to respond to Steve's comment earlier, we are working to do adjustments during the year. I don't think we're gonna be doing them every month. It doesn't make sense to do them until closer to the middle to the end of the year, but we are gonna do that, try to do that this year. But we are still, in catch-up mode to follow up on the quarterly reports. This, accounts for intra-fund transfers, adjustments and so forth, so that we can close out the 2025 budget.
And I did review this procedure with the controller, and she reviewed it with the auditor, and it's an appropriate procedure as far as complying with the regulations.
And I know that the auditor reviewed all of this in light of the audit, preparing to do the audit, which we're gonna do a lot earlier this year, so. Okay, any further discussion?
Yeah, sure, just to add briefly, I am more of a proponent of a monthly review, quarterly review, but we'll get there, hopefully. So
We will do a quarterly review ongoing. We weren't planning for adjustments this early in the year, but that's a good conversation for the finance committee to have with the comptroller.
I'm obviously more of a proponent of the, audit being done before the end of the year, the AFR, some of those things I mentioned in the past, and one of them is the monthly, a semblance of a monthly reporting, leading to the quarterly report, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a comment on that. So in my private day job, I do prepare financial statements monthly basis, but looking at the government setting, going through with Minal, this is, since as Rebecca mentioned, we had a backlog to catch up and still working, and it didn't make sense. I asked the same question, straightforward to her, and it didn't make sense to have like a monthly basis because of all what we are doing is she has a only limited what she can do the transfers. It's allowed by the law. So which is, it really didn't make any sense to bring it monthly basis unless we have the full financial statement we are presenting to everyone. So that's if we are just doing the adjustment, then quarterly is fine with me. That's
Okay.
how I feel. Yeah.
So, she does post the monthly financials online, so we can follow them monthly, but quarterly is a chance to look at how we're doing tracking across the year. But I do agree that it's good to do the adjustments within the year if we can, and she's planning to do that this year, so. Anyone else?
Some of these in my department seem like it's what I had left over, at the end of the year. So I don't know how you would do that monthly because I don't know for sure whether I would have spent that or not. So this seems, from my short little things, it seems like the money that I still had in those lines.
Well,
At the end of the year.
inevitably, toward the beginning of the year, your budget is going to reflect, what you're spending is gonna reflect your budget, and as the year goes along, there's more sort of deviations, unexpected things that come up, emergencies where you have to move money, things like that. So it's as I understand it, it's from the summer forward, and then after the end of the year, when you see where you ended up, that you need to make sure that you've got everything in the right place, so.
Yeah, no, and I found this to be very complete and thorough, and more thorough than I've ever seen before, so we can see just exactly where the money's being moved from to. We can see where we're spending more.
And this does prepare us to make sure that we're using anything, that was left over at the end of the year and charging to last year and, as we go forward, so, at the end of the year, so
Well, we
she's
have
been
to
working on
approve-
it.
I'm sorry, we have to approve balancing the accounts, so.
Yep,
That's-
absolutely.
That's what
Yep.
this is about.
Yep, absolutely, yep. Anybody else? Okay, Minnow will be here, the comptroller will be here on the 18th to do a report on wrapping up for the last year, so she'll be here for questions and a presentation on the 18th. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The resolution carries 7-0.
Resolution number 4, this is about the Town of Poughkeepsie Water Department. They have a dump truck that a 2019 Chevy dump truck that they are going to be, it looks like, exchanging in for a 2025 truck. It's an $80,000 purchase which reflects a $30,000 trade-in for the town for the surplus. And this is exempt from the town's purchasing policy because it is a state bid contract and does not require secra. So moved.
Okay. Second, and this was in the budget, this was anticipated, but with the 2019 being traded in. So,
Can I ask Emily, can you elaborate how it's exempt?
Sure, so, the state, does a bidding process where they accept, proposals for different types of items, and when they make those contracts with the supplier who provided the lowest bid, they incorporated into their contract that other municipalities or other government entities could piggyback off of that contract. So in other words, rather than do our own bidding process, we basically use the process the state already did, where they determined that for this type of a truck, a certain price would be paid. So it just saves municipalities having to do their own bidding process. If you can use the states, you can use another municipalities. There are some cooperative purchasing organizations, so that's what that means.
So in other words, we are dealing with intergovernmental, within the government, so it shows the less fraud, so we don't have to have multiple bids from outside.
Well, right, so we're still purchasing from a private company, but the state already solicited bids from companies and chose the lowest one, and we're using that bidding process. So, yes, that is how we ensured that everyone had an opportunity to put in a bid through the state process.
Right. The thing, fresh off from the classes and now the conference, one thing they repeatedly saying in the purchasing process, if you have a VIN number, it's, you can't say it, you can't buy this particular thing, but it's the government saying to.
Oh, okay, that's a great point. So the VIN number here is the truck that we're trading in.
Okay.
So, right, exactly. What this is saying is the town board has declared that this existing truck we have, the 2019, with this VIN number is surplus, we don't need it anymore,
Right.
and we're gonna trade it in. So we didn't get a bid based on a VIN number.
Okay, so we're
Yeah.
not particularly saying this
No,
one, okay.
correct.
Also,
Trust.
Yeah,
government
right.
involved, thank you.
Yep.
we don't have a specific VIN number for the one we're purchasing, that's for the one we're trading in.
Okay.
Okay? Okay, perfect. Are we good? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Resolution carries 7-0.
All right, resolution number 5 has to do with property stabilization, and the planning board had approved Kenneth Pedersen's application for land contour, aquatic resource and erosion and sediment control for some properties. And a bond was secured and a permit was extended through January 22, 2025. And Mr. Pedersen needed to meet 3 conditions. They're attached in the letter. 3 of those conditions are 80% germination, or the town would receive by close of business on April 13th, a continuation of the bond through at least July 15, 2026, or received by close of business on April 13, either 2,000 in cash or a bank or certified check. As of today, Mr. Peterson has an extension through June 30th, 2026. The town has no interest in having to call the bond, but does require that there be compliance with the permit conditions. So the resolution here is an authorization by the planning board to call the bond if the compliance has not been accomplished by June 30, 2026. This is a type 2 action, not subject to secret because it's part of enforcement proceedings. So moved.
Second.
Okay. It is a little difficult to get perennial grass to germinate 80% right now. But we're asking by June, right? Until, through June, they need to do this to prevent erosion on the site, so. Okay? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Resolution carries 7-0.
Okay, resolution 6 is tree felling security agreement at Manor Hill. And that the planning board has given approval to Manor Hill Mobile Home Park for their proposed development of 14 leased lots with site improvements, including hooking up to water and sewer facilities. And that, and then also that's entry into with the town through the planning board, an agreement to stabilize and restore the site if the project does not proceed, and the requirement of a form of letter of credit, bond, or cash deposit for the undertaking. And the town engineer has indicated that $160,000 undertaking is sufficient to cover the restoration requirements. And that basically it's the agreement for restoration is annexed in the attached form, and security required thereof on behalf of the town. So moved.
Second. If you
Yes,
want to talk about the
sorry,
questions,
yes,
yeah.
this is
I
a-
had the same, we both had the same question, right? You had raised a question about the plan for
Yes.
replacement trees.
Just for clarification, so that people know, they might not be familiar with this particular planned project, but there is already this is an extension basically of a mobile home park that you can access from Van Wagner. This would be breaking through to the other side where there'd be apparently an access road, not to be used by the residents there, but to be an emergency-only access road. You can see it now. It exists. It's probably 15 feet away from the crosswalk on North Grand. When you take the rail trail and you cross over North Grand, you'd be able to see this access road, which would lead to this mobile home park on that part, which means that this mobile home park is right up against the rail trail. And so this is giving them permission to clear cut trees that are visible from the rail trail so that they can put in this development at a later time. This hasn't been officially approved yet, so I do feel that it's not wise to cut down trees prior to the permission to construct because of that very fact that it's very visible from the rail trail, which means that if these trees are cut down and there is not immediate action to turn it into this mobile home park, that it will be a large, open, blank space that will be visible. And it's very close to my neighborhood. I know a lot of people who live in that neighborhood over in the Crestwood area. I know a lot of people who use the rail trail very frequently. I think removing the trees in general and putting this project here is something that a lot of people in that area are not very happy with, which I'm happy to represent them and to let their voices be heard, to let everybody know that this project is not something that they're particularly interested in. But I strongly believe that they should wait until they have full approval before they cut down anything. I understand that the reason that they asked for this exemption is because of bats and the bat habitat that they use the trees for. And so there is a moratorium. You're not allowed to cut down trees after March, and then you can start cutting them again in November. So apparently they try to get this exemption so that they can get ahead of that, so that they can be prepared to start their construction in the spring. My take on that is that those trees have been there for decades and decades and decades. You can just wait one more year until you have official approval. That's just how I feel about it, and I just wanted everybody to be clear on what's going on in that area, since, you know, yeah, this is very close to my home and very close to my heart, so it makes me very sad, and I hope that, I don't know if I can do anything about this. I don't know if I can say nay and it will change the result, or if I can say nay on this as just a stick in the mud, but.
I think
Well,
they already have
everyone can,
approval.
right, everyone can vote as they want to. I know Mike Welty's on the, I don't know if Mike Welty wants to speak to this at all, who's on Zoom tonight. The trees, I mean, as part of the providing of this additional housing, the trees will be cut. I think the question is, are they gonna be cut in March, so that work can begin at some point during this year? Or are they gonna wait until November, in which case the housing is gonna have to wait yet another year because no trees are gonna, you know, there's not gonna be an allowance to cut trees, again until November. So there's a trade-off
happy
here
to,
between, you know, getting the housing expeditiously provided and that. Mike?
Yeah, I just wanted to, first of all, the description of the project was very clear. It is a project that has been under review for actually several years for a variety of reasons, but it does have now conditional approval from the planning board. It actually did get a town board approval for the zoning change as part of the process that it's been through. They're very close at this point to getting the plan signed. Where you know, it's basically cleaning up a couple things on their site plan and formalizing. I believe we're still working on some of the legal agreements, but they're mostly there. In any case, it's a project that's ready to begin construction, but at this time of year, almost every year, we have one or two of these projects that are just shy of getting the plan signatures. It's a question of, you know, can they afford to miss the full construction season, basically, at this point? Or is there a way for them to fell the trees and then we have the bond to, you know, again, to restore the site if necessary? You know, again, the planning board has been working on this project for a very long time. We expect it's going to be starting this spring and would move forward. So I just wanted to give you that information.
And Mike, I have a question. Why wasn't there anything in there about restoration of trees?
Good question. Yeah. So there are two of these on the agenda for tonight, right? The other project is the one at Vassar Prentice Field. And as it was pointed out by, I think it was Doreen actually, that that one does include some money for replanting trees. Really the difference is circumstances in between the two. In both cases, we expect the projects are going to go forward and very soon. They're both very eager to get started. But in the case of Prentice Field at Vassar College, it's an active recreational area. It's already a field today where many of the sports teams from Vassar, you know, practice and so forth. So there are trees that have been there purposefully to provide screening to the homes that are immediately adjacent to those fields. And so it felt a little bit more important in that particular situation that we just have that additional, you know, if for whatever reason this doesn't happen, you know, those trees which do need to come down in order to make way for the improvements to the field, that those would be replaced. It really has to do with the circumstances, not to diminish the rail trail as a neighbor, but you know, whether it's not a pristine forest now at Manor Hill. It's sort of a grown up kind of a forest. A lot of that area has already been cleared over the years for the sewer work and other stuff that's happened in that area. So the thought was that, you know, it's the additional cost of including that in the bond was not necessary for Manor Hill, whereas for Prentice Field, because of the unique circumstances, it would be preferable to have that in the bond as well.
If I could ask a question, Mike, on page 3B, it does say owner shall plant replacement trees on the project site in a location and of the amount and species acceptable to the Director of Municipal Development and the engineer to the town within 120 days of the receipt of a written demand from the town to do so, weather permitting. So that is
Yeah.
in there, and it seems like the tenor of this discussion is for you, Director of Municipal Development, to be clear about, about the amount and species that we want to make sure to protect the rail trail, and that we could provide that direction based on what's in here. Does that make sense? I mean, it is in
does.
here that the town,
Again,
right,
what,
yeah.
what the question, I think, is just about what the bond that the engineering department, did a proposed amount for the bond. And it does not include a specific amount for the trees, but we would still have the ability to, seek some replanting if that became necessary. But it's not included in the price in the bond.
Got it.
Yeah, and Mike, is it really necessary to cut the trees all the way up to the rail trail? Can there be like a fringe left there?
Yeah,
So-
and based on the site plan, it is. There's not a lot of big trees right along that property line. There is some property also between the trail itself and the property in question. But they are going to be putting a fence up and doing, when they do build out the project, there isn't, space for those. You couldn't keep the trees and, do the drainage work and everything else that needs to happen as part of the site plan.
But you're
So,
saying that there's actually a band of property there along the rail trail where they will not be cutting?
There is some property that's not part of this parcel between that and the actual physical trail, yes, yeah.
I'm looking at the plan, it's not, I can't see how many feet that is off of the rail trail, though. It looks.
I don't think
know
it
from
shows
the-
it on that site plan, but it is the property is there, right, the property
This is the
line, but
rail
I don't know
trail.
that it shows, I don't have it in front of me, so I'm at a disadvantage here, but I don't think it shows the trail itself on the
It does.
site.
I think it
It
does.
does.
It's not quite clear how many feet it is, but there is a strip between the property and the rail trail.
I just know, because I drive by it every single day, multiple times, that the like gravelly, like makeshift kind of road that they've started that spills out next to that feels very close to the rail trail.
Yes, it gets very close at that entrance especially, yeah, because that's true, but the parcel varies in width, so.
So I think the question is, are we comfortable with the provisions, in which the town is not asking for a security of bond for tree replacement, but is stating that, the owner shall plant replacement trees, and that the Director of Municipal Development and engineer can specify that? And are we comfortable letting those trees be cut, before the bat season rather than after the bat season? Those, I think, are the questions. Is there anybody else who wants to speak to this?
Well, the planning board has approved it, and they've looked at the site plan, and I'm a little confused, Mike. Does the site plan have a replanting, or does it have a drawing of where the new trees are gonna go? As typical
Oh,
with
the
plans?
site plan does have a landscape, yeah, there is a landscaping plan that's part of the new project.
Okay,
But I think what this is trying to address is that it's that interim period before the project is built, right? They have to start by clearing the trees that are currently in the way. They're seeking to get started this spring, but they won't have their approval buttoned up by March 31st, which is the very last day that you can cut the trees under the state regulations that are intended to protect the bat habitat during the warmer months.
This seems,
okay.
yeah,
So we're just deciding on whether to cut the trees early
Right.
right.
and not, and everything else according to plan, we'll proceed.
But it does sound like this project is gonna be started this spring, that we're not gonna be dragging out into the summer, into the fall. It's gonna start sooner.
Right.
That is what we understand, absolutely. I mean, can I guarantee that? No, I can't. That's why we have the bond. But the reason the planning board and the reason staff have, you know, suggested that this would be an appropriate thing to do is because it's a project that is, you know, 98% of the way to getting that signature and is ready to get started in the spring.
And there's actually a big issue here, which is to me that we're trying to help create housing in a housing crisis. And by waiting till November to cut trees, it's gonna be another year before those housing units are available. In addition to that, creating an extra set of bureaucracy and some delays for the person who's trying to develop them, which may, you know, increase the expense. So, you know, I'm in favor of it because I think we should go ahead and get the project, you know, if the project's in the works and ready to go, that we're better off going ahead and doing that. It's not a matter of whether these trees are to be preserved or not. It's really when are they to be cut. But again, others might feel differently.
Mike, I just wanted to ask, to Rebecca's point on the, secra for this, the planning board was comfortable, it seems, with the report that there would be no significant adverse environmental impact and that the.
Yeah,
The potential habitat
last-
for rare bird, species as well.
Yes, that's correct. And in fact, as part of the seeker review, the bat habitat protection is part of the mitigation that is required. So out of the seeker process comes the site plan requirement that says you can't clear the trees between March 31st and November 1st, consistent with the state regulations to protect the habitat of these bats. The bats are currently in hibernation in caves in the area. As the weather warms up, you know, the date is March 31st, but sometime around then is when they come out and they start to look for the trees to live in. And that's why in this region, this is a frequent occurrence. But like I said, almost every year we do at least a couple of these. I think at the last meeting, we did one for Habitat for Humanity. It's a very similar circumstance. This is just a way of trying to, in an appropriate situation where a project is really ready to go, to not have that become something that puts off the project for another year, which seems to be, you know, that's a pretty big burden to put it off that long.
Thank you.
Anybody else who has questions, comments? Does everyone feel ready to vote? Okay, then all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so the resolution passes by 6-1 vote. Thanks. Okay, more trees. Resolution number 7. I think this one's mine, right?
Yep.
All right, whereas the planning board has made this recommendation, I'm trying to summarize and not read the whole thing, right? This is another tree felling security agreement, this one for Vassar Prentice Field, and in this case, the bond does include a bond for tree replacement. And it's a $24,495 bond. So, the resolution is that the town supervisor and director of municipal development are authorized to receive and execute this agreement for restoration. So moved.
Second.
Oh, all right, so this is having to do with a new turf field, replacing a grass field with a turf field and making upgrades to a second existing grass field, upgrading sports fields at Vassar College. Okay? Any discussion, questions? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, the resolution carries 7-0.
Okay, Resolution 8 gives the supervisor the authority to sign Lot 56, 3-lot subdivision relating to Stafford Farms and Kensington Way, with including the following documents: declaration of covenants, grant of permanent easements for utilities, stormwater management facility inspection and maintenance easement, and any supporting recording documents. that such acceptance and authorization by the town board is subject to the approval of all final documents by the town attorney, planning board, town engineer, and the director of municipal development for the town of Poughkeepsie. So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? We're good? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The resolution carries 7-0.
Resolution number 9 is our third attempt at fixing Spackenkill Road, slowing the traffic down.
Yes.
We'd be authorizing submission of a grant application to New York State DOT for the 2025 Transportation Alternatives Program and approval of a local match contribution. And this would be, we are trying to implement traffic calming measures between Croft Road up to Old Farms Road off of Spackenkill. And the estimated total project cost would be $8,750,000. The DOT TAP grant would fund 80% of it, and we would have to match 20% of that cost. So moved.
Second. Okay, so this would be from, basically from Todd Middle School up to the high school. There was a question earlier about traffic calming measures. This is about providing a sidewalk, that makes it a little bit less of an interstate highway along there, and the sidewalk then, you know, by providing a narrower road, provides some protection for pedestrians. There are a lot of students who walk along from middle school up to the Spackenkill High School for athletics, practice after school. And Spackenkill is the speedway, as we've discussed in other contexts, and this would be a way to make this work. There have been a few residents who've been concerned about maintenance of the sidewalk. And again, on all of this, Mike Welty could maybe speak more, but I know that we've been in conversation with Spackenkill School District about working together on maintenance of the sidewalk, but it seems very urgently important to increase pedestrian safety along that stretch of Spackenkill. Mike, is there anything you would add to that? This is our, again, as Barb said, our third time around on working on some funding for this.
Yeah, no, nothing to add, just that we did do a study with the Dutchess County Transportation Council, you know, a couple of years ago at this point, that, you know, really did the feasibility for the project, and took a look at it, involved community input. And so we have been looking for funding to complete the sidewalk project, and this is the best option there is for hopefully achieving that.
Okay.
Could I just ask, Mike, because there was a question earlier about DOT having to approve it since it's on a state road. Was DOT part of that planning process?
They were part of the planning process. They also have authorized this application, and in fact, they will be working with us, if we're funded, to help through the design of the road. But we have to apply. The DOT will not do that on their own. It has to come from us, and so that's why we're here.
Okay, and thank you. I know you've carried this forward, Mike. I appreciate your work on this. Any other questions? I know
Yes,
several of us have been talking with people over there about the need for this.
Yeah, I just wanted to second what you said. I'm in that area, and it's for most parents very concerning that, you know, from the games or walking to the high school, the kids are pretty much sometimes veering into the street because there's no sidewalk. So I'm hoping this will be successful because we really need it. It's a safety concern. So
I think there's a lot of folks with front yards there too who could use that buffer
for
from the
sure,
road.
for sure.
Talk to people who feel endangered mowing the front of their lawn because they're so close to the traffic, so. Okay,
Yeah, this is very, I just, you know, this is for the grant application resolution, and I know we have to look ahead to see how we're gonna raise the 1.7 million, right? But I believe this is a necessary safety measure, so, for that area, so, long time coming.
it's a top priority in the plan, comprehensive plan in terms of traffic calming and dangerous areas, so, yep. Okay, and we, you know, if the grant's received, then we have the conversation, I mean, you know, as we move toward that, about the match. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, the resolution carries 7-0, and thank you again, Mike, for your, finding that opportunity and working on that. Okay, resolution 10.
Resolution 10, I'm just reading the title. Supporting state legalization to require all federal agents to meet professional standards for identification and accountability. This is something we tabled from last meeting. Bill mentioned that you need more time, and so moved.
Okay,
Second.
second. All right, this applies to federal officials only in the state of New York. And New York is asserting its jurisdiction over officers working here. So, it's actually a very short bill. I forwarded it to everybody so we could all take a look at it. Any further comments, questions?
I need to, because thank you for extending the time, and I did take the time to review it, but, no, I'm going to vote no on this measure because I believe that, this does not pertain to the business of the town of Poughkeepsie. I joined as a councilman to help with services, lowering taxes, making our services more efficient, and I don't think this is anywhere in that realm. And also, I'm not comfortable with some of the language, so I therefore vote no on that.
Okay, and to understand, this is a complicated issue, and it does address state and federal laws. I'll say that, I have met with, some folks in the community, including, Chief Cavalier was nice enough to meet with, some community, and we're hearing, what I'm hearing and what was shared, with the town police is a lot of anxiety and fear, based on, some officers, federal officers not necessarily being identified. All our local officers have a professional protocol when, obviously, if you're undercover for, the drug task force or whatever, that doesn't pertain. But fear of federal ICE agents has clearly created a fear in people who are unwilling to come forward and report crimes. So it is a public safety issue for us if people say, I'm terrified of police officers and I'm not gonna come forward and report crimes. And that's a broader issue. It's not a brand new issue. It is an issue for people who are here undocumented for a long time back. But I think, asking agents to be accountable with a badge and with a name, and to follow the protocols of explaining to people why they're being stopped, is important. And with due respect to the comments made earlier, I don't think it's misinformation that people have been arrested without clear understanding of why, including people, U.S. citizens who've been deported when they are in fact U.S. citizens. And under those circumstances, I can understand why there's a lot of fear. So I understand people may vote differently, but I think, I know Assemblymember Barrett is one of the sponsors of this legislation. It has a lot of co-sponsors, and I think it does pertain to our community and to how, making sure that people feel safe and helping make sure that officers are identified, federal as well as, this only applies to federal officers.
But I want to mention that we represent every single resident in the town of Poughkeepsie. So if, even a small sliver of that population is feeling very upset or very nervous about it, I've read the bill too, and all it's asking is that all federal law enforcement agents reach that same professionalism that our own officers do. We're not asking them to do anything differently than what our own town of Poughkeepsie police do and our sheriffs. And so I didn't think it was overstepping our bounds to represent our fellow citizens in the town and speak out for everyone. So that's why I'm going to vote for it.
Okay, is there anyone else wanted to speak?
Yes, I would like to mention, I am a naturalized citizen, and I'm originally from Sri Lanka. In Sri Lanka, when I grew up, this is the 30 years of civil war we were going through, and this is what the government did. They would have an emergency law that you don't need a warrant to knock at the door, or you don't have to wear uniform, arrest anyone. And then you also have a militia, you have gangs abusing. So that's why we have standards. So I lived with that. We have the standards that's we follow. Otherwise we don't have to spend money for our police officers to wear uniforms. They can wear denim and t-shirts or whatever. So we have a standard clearly identified. The goal here is public safety. we are not only the constituent, but our residents, spending our money for the town purpose only. And we want to have our resident need to feel safe. We knock at doors, thousands of doors. Everybody show concern about this last year already. So it's not like 3 people, it's thousands of people show concern even before this resolution. So that's why I would support, and we need to have a standard. It's nothing wrong with showing the badge. If it is undercover, it's totally different subject. And we can argue about the amendments or Supreme Clause. It sounds, you can argue both way, but I would support this one because the majority of the people I talk to want to support this resolution.
Okay, is there anyone else who wanted to speak? Are we ready to vote? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so it passes by a vote of 6 to 1. And then we'll ask that, we'll convey that to our representatives in the state legislature. Okay, I think things go to the town clerk now.
There was a claim that was referred to legal, and then it's minutes. That's a resolution.
Okay. So the next is Resolution 12. Let's see, who?
I think I'm next.
Yes, I think
Yep.
that's right.
All right, so this is accepting the minutes, the 2026 Town Board meeting minutes from January 21st, February 4th, and February 18th. So moved.
Second. Okay, any discussion, any corrections? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The resolution carries 7-0, and thank you very much to the town clerk for the minutes.
The next thing is a cannabis notification, that's all I have. It's not really an event, it's notification. And it's actually from Tranquil Hudson Cannabis, 794 Dutchess Turnpike. So it's the same person that has a couple different notifications in the same spots down by the diner area, Arlington Diner area. So, and it's just a notification, it doesn't mean that there's gonna be anything there, this is just the first step. They notify and then we'll see where
We
it
got
goes.
a whole
There's a
flurry
whole
of these.
flurry of things that have to happen after that for it to be approved.
It may or may not mean that anything happens. Okay, thank
Correct.
you. I know we have at least one event, which is Saturday, right? I don't know if, Bill, you want to speak to that?
Well,
or
we
what?
have
Oh, I forgot
the,
about that, but it doesn't really come to
I
mind.
forget which annual, but it's the St. Patrick's Day Parade. Everyone's Irish on the 7th of March. The parade step-off is at 1 o'clock. Those interested in marching, please let your town representative know, or the town council people are going to be gathering at, in front of RPH Auto. And we'll be there at noon, getting ready, getting organized, and then we'll kick off at 1 o'clock. So please bring your family and friends. It's going to be a wonderful event. Very, very tremendous amount of planning, tremendous amount of sponsors. So it's a great time. So hope to see you there.
I admit that I went several years before I realized that it's actually the Dutchess County St. Patrick's Day Parade.
That's right.
And so we get to claim our share. It's not just the
not
Wappingers
just-
Parade.
it starts in the
It's
town of
all of us,
Poughkeepsie.
right, so, good, all right. So, yeah, some of us will be there, and the weather might even be halfway decent this year
it'll be
instead of
okay.
being, we'll find out, so. Okay, any other events people are aware of? All right, we do need to go briefly into executive session. So what I'd like to do is move to suspend the rules for anyone who may want to speak to us on any issue, and take that 3 minutes of comment first for anyone who may want to speak, and then we'll go into executive session. So moved?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries, so the floor is open for anyone who wants to speak on any issue. Is there anyone in the room who would like to speak? Yes, Steve, welcome.
Steve Oswei's Third Ward. So about the initial thing, your suggestions about shortening the readings and stuff, I agree 100%. And I think 99.9% of the community would. And the offer, from legal for them to make the summary a 1 or 2 sentence, much like the county does, I think makes perfect sense, and it will probably cut the meetings in half. The other part on the consent, I think that is a good idea for the routine things, like the appointments, the resignations, those things that there never seems to be an issue on, so instead of going through, some nights it's 5 or 6 of them, one vote and it'll be over. I think that is an excellent idea. And just one thing to probably beat a dead horse, but the law you just voted to support does not say federal agents, it says all police officers. So if you read it, it's not just for federal, it is every officer in the state. So I just wanted to point that out.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll recheck, thank you. I will say that I'm not opposed to a consent agenda to keep talking about that. The crux of the issue is who decides what's routine? Because sometimes you think something's routine, like, and then it isn't, and then sometimes you think something isn't, so it's hard to say. But I appreciate the vote in favor of efficient meetings, and we can keep working on that, because then that saves more of our time for the larger discussions. Okay.
Also, I always wonder how people are watching the meeting. If people are watching it just on video, for instance, and not looking at an agenda, they wouldn't know what those items were in the consent
Yes.
agenda. So if you go through them one by one, at least anyone that's watching can be aware of what you're voting on.
It seems like the key is having those longer titles in any case, right? So that then, no matter what, whether the clerk is reading a consent agenda or whether we're going through it one by one, the message
In the consent
is clear.
agenda, in the new program, you can list it, you could say retirement of. It says what it is, it's just, you don't
Right.
have to read them all.
Okay. Sometimes on those retirements, we actually do want to comment and thank people and things
Yeah,
like that. And
that's
so that's
true.
just the issue. How much time do you want to take on these? I don't know. Okay, anybody else who's in the room who would like to speak? We had a couple people online. All right, Doreen, welcome.
Thank you. I have to say that I am against the consent agenda. I don't know, that just seems like a way to limit or avoid public discussion, and I would not be in favor of that. And when you did first, Rebecca, come onto the board, you did have like a limit where people were just summarizing, and I think that worked out well, but again, I'm certainly not in favor of a consent agenda. Then I have to say again about executive session, I brought this up a number of times. The February 18th meeting, again, it said proposed pending or current litigation. And you really, to be in compliance with the open meetings law, you really need to be saying specifically what litigation you're going in for. For example, you're going to discuss litigation strategy in the case of XYZ versus the town. So I'd like to see that section of the open meetings law being adhered to. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was the Nesterly program. So I filed a FOIL request. So far, from the documents I received, you spent $40,387 on that. And again, I know that you have said that they're federal ARPA funds, but just because they're federal funds doesn't mean it's not taxpayer money that should be spent well. So also, when I filed the FOIL, I asked for the quarterly reports, which were part of the, supposed to be supplied to you according to the contract, and there were no reports, was the response I got. So I want to know exactly how many applications did you get and how many, if any, actual, agreements or housing sharing came out of that. And if not, that was a pretty expensive venture. And since you had appropriated $82,208 for that, is the rest of that money going to go back into the sewer fund where it was first transferred out of? Thank
So-
you.
Yeah, I think the answer to that's gonna get long and complicated, so I'll just make a note and then I'm happy to email. Rather than a FOIL, you could call and ask and we can try to get you everything we have in our office too, would be another way to do it. Or we'll provide supplementary information for what you didn't, anything that you didn't get, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. And on the legal question, I don't, sometimes there is not actually a case name. There's a potential for possible litigation, but there's no name to the case, so maybe the attorney can advise us over time, we can talk about what we can do in those cases, but, so.
Sure, I'll send you some advisory opinions on that. Thank you.
We'll take a check here too, thank you. All right, Adam Goldfish, welcome.
Hi, good evening. Two things. One, I was curious if the town has made a deal with the Elks Club for the parking lot. And, if not, are you guys close to, completing that?
We're in conversation with them as of now.
Okay, very good. And the other thing I wanted to say is, I want to commend, all of you, of course, for the exemplary jobs you all do, but particularly, Shanta has been a very big help to all of us because he asks a lot of good questions and it really helps explain things to everyone else that's listening and watching. So, kudos to him for speaking up and making more involvement with things. So I just wanted to address that. Thank you very much, Mr. Shanahan.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mary, welcome.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to express my appreciation for the very consciousness and deliberateness and care that are put into many of the decisions and work. But I do appreciate supporting the resolution as you did this evening, and how it's important to our quality of life going forward. So it's an investment that that decision is making in our futures. So I have much appreciation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Okay, seeing no one else, I move to return to regular session.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries 7-0. Okay, and then I move that we go into executive session for the purpose of discussing the personnel history of one specific employee. And during executive session, no expenditure of funds will be made. In fact, we don't need a vote. We just need to update the board briefly on something. So moved?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries 7-0. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here, and I hope you have a good night.